Hello and welcome to the Debrief. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Today we'll take you to Alabama, where rescue crews continue to search for any survivors after a series of tornadoes ripped through towns there. Also, a major medical breakthrough. A new report documents a person being cured of HIV, and it's the second known case. And the tributes and personal stories continue to pour in after the unexpected death of actor Luke Perry. But first, here are your headlines.
At the southern border, Customs and Border Patrol now says it's seeing a surge.
With 30,000 families apprehended trying to cross the U.S. border in February, CBP says it's the highest number since it began keeping that statistic. Overall, the agency says border apprehensions reached 73,000 last month, and the trajectory for the next 2 months is projected to top 110,000 in March and 125,000 in April.
AT&T Time Warner is reorganizing its TV and movie businesses. The move follows a judge's decision to allow the $81 billion merger between the two companies. As part of the reorganization, AT&T plans to put an emphasis on streaming rather than cable TV networks.
Ben Carson says he intends to step down as Housing and Urban Development Secretary after President Trump's first term. Carson, the only black member of the president's cabinet, told Newsmax TV that he's interested in returning to the private sector, saying he could have as much or more influence.
We're starting in Alabama today, where rescue crews continue to search for any survivors after 23 people lost their lives after devastating tornadoes ripped through towns there. You can see some of that devastating damage, and we are just starting to see the faces of some of those who lost their lives, some of them children. Rachel Scott joins us live in Beauregard, Alabama. And Rachel, what have you heard so far from authorities and their continued search for survivors?
Hi there, Stephanie. Well, the last 48 hours have just been filled with heartbreak. And this is why. Just look at the widespread damage here. This used to be a home here. Now, all that's left is just materials and belongings scattered here. You see dressers and pillows, mattresses, things just scattered here. And this happened after that deadly tornado made its way through this area. 170-mile-per-hour winds came through this area. And I just want to take a walk with me so you could see a little bit more of the damage and just the widespread destruction that we're seeing here. Now, most tornadoes are only on the ground for maybe just a couple of minutes. This one was on the ground for nearly 30. And as you can see, that combined with just the sheer force of those high-speed winds has caused this amount of damage. We know that 23 people have died. Right now, families are planning funerals for 23 people. 3 of those were children, including a 4th grader, Taylor Thornton. Those two deadly tornadoes actually hit this area at nearly the same time, and officials have upgraded the deadliest of the two, to an EF4. As I said, that rare and violent storm sent 170-mile-per-hour winds ripping through 24 miles. And as you can see here, it left a trail of destruction in its wake. It's just completely startling to be here. And you know, in this, just talking to a few of the homeowners here, they lost everything. And on top of that, they're now learning that some of their neighbors didn't make it out alive. We know that most of the victims, most of those who died from this tornado were living in just 1 square mile from each other. So they were neighbors, they were friends. But also in this moment, Stephanie, we have seen the heart of some good residents who say their homes were spared. I spoke with a few women yesterday who were actually caravanning throughout the different parts of the state, dropping off care packages and water, pizza, and any sort of food for not only those that lost their homes, but also search and rescue crews that are working very hard to rehabilitate this area and help those people that are suffering.
Rachel,
Stephanie?
definitely some incredible stories coming out of that area, devastating stories as well. But as you said, those people who were killed living within 1 square mile of each other, just incredible. What has stood out to you the most since you've been there on the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at this damage, right? I spoke with one homeowner yesterday. They had been living in their home for 8 years, and it was just completely flattened. And just on the other side, another home was perfectly okay. And we've also been hearing just these terrible, harrowing and just horrible stories of folks that were injured. I spoke with one woman yesterday that said her grandfather was actually walking to his truck at the time that one of those tornadoes was hitting the ground. He was launched into the air. He landed on his back. He broke his hip. He broke his neck, she said, and he is currently recovering in ICU. Luckily, hopefully, he's going to be okay, but we don't even know how these homeowners behind us fared out. We are obviously hoping that they made it out okay.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much. This tornado that hit Beauregard, Alabama, reportedly the worst tornado to hit since the Moore, Oklahoma tornado back in 2013. Well, now let's get a check of the weather across the country with Ginger Z.
Stephanie, thank you. Here in Philadelphia, we're going to feel like the single digits by tomorrow morning, and Wednesday morning it's going to be really cold. You know, in New York, it'll be almost sub-freezing as far as wind chills go. But that's nothing compared to what they did in South Dakota. Had their coldest wind chill on record. That was in Summit. You're seeing the video there where that ground blizzard took over Interstate 29. You don't even need snow falling to have a ground blizzard, by the way. But either way, that came with that severe cold, and now it's making its advance all the way south. And so you have freeze warnings from Texas to North Carolina. The next couple of mornings, we're going to see records drop. Already have this morning. Waco, Texas ended up in the 20s, which broke a daily record. You're going to see numbers that are feeling sub-freezing for sure. You see the wind chills kind of taking over there. And then it all slides to the east, and that's when we end up anywhere from Charleston up to New York City or Boston talking about how cold it is, especially for March. Don't know that that's going to be breaking records in the Northeast, but it'll certainly be uncomfortable. And how about we go west then to a place where we're preparing for another storm. Yes, another one. This is Squaw Valley. Of course, they had their snowiest February on record with more than 25 feet. They've had nearly 600 inches of snow. I can't even fathom what that ends up feeling like, but you can see what it looks like right there. And that next storm with the winter storm warnings throughout the Sierra, the flood watches that extend down to Los Angeles. Los Angeles in there, some of the mountain areas could end up with 4 or 5 inches of rain, and we're always concerned about burn scars. That's going to happen today through Wednesday. So another storm to talk about. And then, of course, the cold here. Stephanie, from coast to coast, we're talking about ugly March. I think you need to come to the Philadelphia Flower Show, where I am, to warm up and be inspired for spring.
Thank you very much, Ginger. It looks beautiful there, and I loved the little Woodstock flower thing you had earlier on Good Morning America. Well, now let's turn to a major medical breakthrough. A man in London appears to have been cured of HIV. He's the second person to be known to have been cured of HIV. We're joined now with ABC's medical unit doctors, Dr. Layla Hagigat and Dr. Amrit Kamboj. Thank you so much to you both for being here this morning. Can you break down exactly what we know about this vaccine that apparently cured these two individuals of HIV?
Yeah, so what people have been talking about with this London patient is very exciting. It's not so much a vaccine, rather a bone marrow transplant that seems to have caused HIV to go into remission. And there are a lot of caveats with how practical this might be. You know, it's like you said, only the second patient ever to have had something like this happen. But it's exciting because it's given researchers a lot of hope for new ways that we can potentially treat HIV.
Okay, so not a vaccine. Tell us, what are we watching out for next with this? Obviously, this is scientists and doctors have been looking into this for quite some time. And here on our screen, we can see how this patient was cured. But can you talk a little bit about what we're looking out for next?
Yeah, so the idea is that if somebody were to get a bone marrow transplant, basically all their immune cells are wiped out, and there's a possibility that they might have in the new cells that they receive an inability to have HIV come into the cells. And so that's why people are talking about remission in HIV for this patient in particular. But like I said, there are a lot of reasons to have concern about how this can play out for the masses, right? It's only the second patient. Bone marrow transplants are they're not without complications, right? So people who get bone marrow transplants end up hospitalized a lot of the times. They can have infections. And we have to really weigh the risks and benefits of a bone marrow transplant. Right now, the treatment for HIV is very good just with medications. It's cheap, it's effective, and so will bone marrow transplants actually surpass medications? I think we're a long, long way from that. We need a lot more research into that.
Right, and this is probably, like you said, there still needs to be more research, but a lot of people who are suffering from HIV, this is probably some welcome news to them that there seems to be some sort of pathway here. Now, Dr. Cambodge, do you think this is finally the cure scientists have been searching for? Could this be it?
I think the most important to talk about, the thing to talk about in terms of HIV is screening. Screening is the best way to kind of, by knowing whether you have the disease, is the best way to protect yourself, your partner from the disease. About 1 in 7 people who have HIV actually are unaware that they have the disease, and screening can be done with a simple blood test. The Centers for Disease Control recommends that all adults in the U.S. should be screened for HIV with the blood test at least once in their life. For people who have other risk factors like multiple sexual partners, screening should be done more often, but really screening is the best way to know whether you have the disease, and then discussions can be had about treatments.
And now let's move on to actual vaccines. So happening right now, a teen out of Ohio is testifying on Capitol Hill before the Senate. He made headlines after getting standard vaccinations against his parents' wishes. Here's a bit of his testimony.
There always seems to be a counterclaim or rebuttal, and always something to strike back with in terms of debate. Though this may seem true in all instances, this is not true for the vaccine debate, and I approached my mother with this concern that she was incorrect. I approached my mother numerous times trying to explain that vaccines are safe and that my family should be vaccinated. Approaching even with articles from the CDC, explicitly claiming that ideas that vaccines cause autism and extremely dangerous consequences were incorrect.
So this is a view that a lot of parents, a lot of adults share. So apparently this teenager, he went through life without getting vaccinations. His mother believed that those would lead to autism. So now he's decided he's getting his vaccinations. And of course, as you heard there, he's testifying on Capitol Hill about this. Now, this is a pretty consistent view. When my boys were young, I heard the same thing, kind of spread out the vaccines to reduce the risk of getting autism. What would you doctors share with others about vaccinations and how important they may be to get?
I think as doctors, we emphasize that vaccines are, one, safe, they work, and that they're effective. They induce immunity or protection by imitating a virus, whether by infecting a person with either a dead form of the virus or a weakened form of the virus, and that allows our immune system to develop antibodies and protection against the virus. Most of the side effects with the vaccines are limited and are rare. The most common kind of the side effect would be a soreness in the arm or redness in the arm or a slight fever, but the benefits far outweigh any potential risks from vaccines.
Okay. Well, Dr. Cambodge and Dr. Hagigot, thank you so much to you both for joining us this morning on The Debrief.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All
right. We want to check in with Carlos Herrera from our ABC affiliate. He is in California. There has been many protests there in that area over the death of Stephon Clark. Tell us what's going on there right now, Carlos.
Calvary Christian Center.
Well, right now we're hearing from a spokesperson from the Clark family that the mother of Stephon Clark is expected to meet here at this very room at a local Christian church in Sacramento to meet with Attorney General Javier Becerra. That meeting is scheduled to happen in about 45 minutes. We've seen church staff here preparing for that meeting. We're hearing from that family spokesperson that the mother will be asking Attorney General Becerra for an independent investigation on that case. Now, in terms of protesting this morning, rather quiet, but that wasn't the case last night in the streets of Sacramento. We know hundreds of people took to the streets at a historic neighborhood in Sacramento. We know more than 80 people were arrested and others were also detained. One of those people that was detained is actually a well-known local news reporter. He works for a newspaper here. He's been here for decades. He was detained for several hours and was released shortly before midnight. We spoke with him after he was released. He tells us officers were trying to handcuff him. He told them that he worked for the media. Officers did tell him that they knew he was a member of the media, but that he wasn't following the protocol to disperse. Again, he was later released. We also hearing that a student journalist from the Sacramento State University was also detained. He was released before midnight as well. And this morning, actually, we heard from a reporter from the Sacramento Business Journal. He was detained as well. They have all been released this morning. We're also hearing from demonstrators this morning on social media. They're planning a demonstration out at City Hall later this afternoon. There is a city council meeting that is scheduled at 5 p.m. today. We're hearing from them on social media saying they plan on being there way earlier than that and planning on staying until the meeting ends and way past after that as well. So this morning, again, we're at a local community church just waiting for Stephon Clark's mother to meet with Attorney General Javier Becerra.
Okay, and those folks, of course, protesting the decision not to charge the officers who shot Stephon Clark. So that's what we're watching out for next, the mother meeting with the Attorney General. Carlos, thank you so very much for joining us. So now we want to take you to Washington. Disgraceful, abusive, pathetic political games. Those are just some of the adjectives the White House is using to describe the sweeping investigation by House Democrats. Let's bring in our Karen Travers there at the White House. And Karen, we kind of expected this, right? We knew that at the beginning of the year, Democrats were going to take over the House, and it was going to be a completely different ball game there on Capitol Hill and for the White House. And it's within their right, for the Democrats to investigate.
It is. And Stephanie, the Democrats will say that Republicans didn't do this over the past 2 years, so they have to follow the rule of law, and they're going to investigate the president, his administration, his businesses, and his family. The White House was also anticipating this from the moment that the midterm elections were called for the Democrats in the House. They started staffing up, adding lawyers who would focus exclusively on these investigations. So now we have a very big probe by the House Judiciary Committee. And Stephanie, this is, of course, the committee that could move forward on impeachment for the president. They have the authority to do that. And this is a very wide-ranging investigation that's going to look at possible allegations of corruption, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power by the president. The chairman, Congressman Gerald Nadler, has sent letters to 81 different people or entities to try and get information. They've set a deadline of 2 weeks. They want all of that back by March 18th. And Stephanie, they're looking at trying to get information from the president's sons, Don Jr. and Eric, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, former senior advisors like Steve Bannon and Hope Hicks, and also top officials on his current campaign, the re-election campaign, and the Trump Organization.
House Democrats just getting started. And Karen, moving on to the president's national emergency declaration, we know the Senate is set to block that declaration, with surprisingly some Republicans joining Democrats and voting against it.
Yeah, 4 Republicans have now come out in the Senate to say that they would be supporting this resolution, blocking the president's emergency declaration to build a border wall with funding that had been approved by Congress somewhere else. You have Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and now the new one, Rand Paul, who says, you know, this is an overreach of power. That gives them 4. That means that the Democrats have enough support there to push this through. Now, this will inevitably be vetoed by the president. And Stephanie, it doesn't seem like Congress has that veto-proof majority to override that, but this will be notable. This is a very strong statement, pushing back on something that is a top priority for the president, and this would be his first veto.
Certainly would. Karen Travers live at the White House for us. Thank you so much. Switching gears just a bit, we want to talk money. Remember that $1 billion plus Mega Millions jackpot last year? Well, The winner is apparently coming forward now to claim their prize. It's not too late. TJ Holmes is in Simpsonville, South Carolina, where the winning ticket was sold. TJ?
Stephanie, $877,784,124. That is the after-taxes amount that somebody here in this area is waiting to show up in his or her account today. I say his or her because we don't know if it's a man or a woman or family. We don't know. Because even though the person has come forward, or people have come forward, they have chosen to remain anonymous. Yes, South Carolina is just one of a handful of states that law allows the lottery winner to remain anonymous. So this winner has finally come forward and say, yep, I want to be rich, but I don't want to be famous. And I say finally come forward because if you remember, the ticket was sold back in October, that record $1.5 billion jackpot. Now, the person has only a month left. It was April 19th as the deadline that they had to collect their winnings, or they would forfeit that $1.5 billion, and the money would then be redistributed to the 44 states who participate in the Mega Millions. But they came forward in time, probably just getting their ducks in a row. So now they've chosen that lump sum amount, which is going to be going into their account pretty soon. The winner, or the winning store here that sold that ticket, actually, they are getting a $50,000 cut. CJ Patel, the owner here, says he's waiting for his money, said it should get here in about a week. And also the state of South Carolina wins $61 million in tax revenue from this. So enough money to go around, but good for them. Person has finally come forward, but they've come forward to say, I don't want to necessarily come all the way forward. Just give me my money and give me my anonymity and let me go on about my life. A lot of people here, it's kind of a little game. People are guessing who it is. They think they pieced it together. They see clues here and there, but Stephanie, the best clue is that whoever's house has a moving van sitting out in front of it right about now.
That's absolutely right. Who moves out of the neighborhood first? That's your clue. TJ Holmes in South Carolina for us. Thank you so much. Let's move on to California. In Hollywood, the tributes continuing to pour in for TV star Luke Perry after his sudden death yesterday. ABC's Romina Puga is live in Hollywood. And Romina, what's the mood like there?
Hey, Stephanie. Yeah, actor Luke Perry, best known for his role as Dylan McKay on 90210, passed away yesterday at the age of 52. He was rushed to the hospital last Wednesday after suffering a massive stroke that he just didn't recover from. He was surrounded by his family those last days up until the end, including his 2 children, his fiance, his ex-wife, siblings, parents, a lot of close family. And Perry rose to fame as that bad boy heartthrob Dylan McKay in 90210, and more recently in the last couple years as a dad heartthrob on the CW's Riverdale as Fred Andrews, Archie Andrews' father. And castmates from both those shows and numerous projects throughout the years have been sharing their love and support on social media for the actor.
It was a shock to so many people, his family and his fans. I mean, I remember watching him on 90210, staying up late. It was like 9 or 10, not allowed to watch 90210, but just wanted to see Luke Perry and the rest of the gang. We're looking at a tweet from Patricia Arquette there saying, tweeting, Luke Perry, irreplaceable, beautiful, and a kind human being, incredible friend, generous actor. And these are a lot of the things we've heard about Luke Perry. I was just reading yesterday that he was on a flight and there was a child who had been screaming and crying on the plane the entire time, and he got up and gave that, child a balloon. He apparently carried balloons with him all the time while flying just to, hand it out to kids on planes. So these are just some of the sentiments that we've heard about Luke Perry.
Numerous stories like that, yeah.
Anything stand out to you being there in Hollywood?
The CW crew, everyone. Yeah, I mean, all the studios that he worked with, the CW, they all shared a message yesterday saying he was a great role model to all those younger actors on Riverdale, his old castmates, nothing but nice things to say about him. He was an activist during the writer's strike, so he will be severely missed.
Absolutely. Romina Puga live in Hollywood for us. Thank you so much. Or in Beverly Hills. It said Beverly Hills behind her, didn't it? Well, thank you so much for watching the debrief today. Make sure to keep it here on ABC News Live throughout the day for the very latest. Our political show starts at 3:30, the briefing room, and then you can watch World News Prime at 8 o'clock. Make sure to tune in. And of course, the very latest news you can always find on our ABC News app. Thanks for watching. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Have a great day.